Welcome to the Grow People podcast. David Stein, along with lead pastor of Revolution Church, Jason Gerdes.
Welcome.
The purpose of the Grow People podcast is to help grow people. The podcast is part of our discipleship here at Revolution Church. We have a guest today.
Yeah, we do.
Just like we had Lance Witt and Whitney Capps. This man is a longtime friend of the church, also a longtime mentor of Pastor Jason. Founding and building pastor of a church in Southern California in the San Diego area. It's now called North Coast Church. It's a multi-campus church, I think like 10 plus campuses. He's written many books. I highly recommend these books. Sticky Church, Sticky Teams, Accidental Pharisees, Thriving in Babylon, and my personal favorite that I've read several times, Lead Like a Shepherd. Please welcome to the Grow People podcast, Larry Osborne.
Hi, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Was that an accurate introduction?
Yeah, it was pretty accurate. Almost like my mother wrote it.
Okay. Somebody brought Lead Like a Shepherd to our office one day, and I could not put it down. And that was right about the time that I became a pastor here at Revolution Church. That was not my original plan. And Pastor Jason had other plans. So, but Lead Like a Shepherd was foundational. It's very helpful. What's exciting about having you here today, and Jason has said this to our church, but he's said this to our staff many times. He has friends who are influential in his life, and he wants us to meet his friends.
Yeah.
So getting to meet Lance and getting to meet you, spending time with you at Exponential last month, lots of fun. But now our church gets to meet you, and we're very thankful that you're preaching this weekend. We'll get into what you're preaching. Actually, I think this is airing after you preach.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So they will have heard that.
So great message.
Yeah.
It was terrific.
Yeah, you might want to throw this whole podcast away. Sunday and Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So give us a little history of, where'd you grow up and how did you wind up in Southern California?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. Both my wife and I are third generation, which is kind of strange for Southern California. I grew up in a very legalistic church, a little bit of a us four and no more on top of that. Therefore, had a long time before I knew the gospel, but I wasn't very interested in it because of the package I'd seen it in. Then a friend had me sneak to this church where they were going to hell because they weren't exactly part of our little four. And I went all the way down to the beach area. And there was an old bald dude. He was about 42. Back then, I thought that was old. And he taught through the King James Bible for 10 chapters a night. And I sat there and went, this is unbelievable. There are about 300-400 people in the room. There were the hippies with the long hair sharing a Bible back then with a grandma in a gingham dress, if you will.
Yeah.
And I came home and I told my folks, I'm going to be a pastor.
Wow.
I had come to the Lord about 9 months to a year before, hated churches, but loved the Bible. So I thought, I'll go to some college and try to be a Bible teacher. And this guy showed me that I could be Larry and be a pastor, not what my stereotype was. And I never changed. Now, his name is Chuck Smith, and anybody who saw the Jesus Revolution movie, it was way back at the absolute beginning of that thing.
Wow.
So that had a huge impact on me in terms of what God could do. You're part of something that explodes like that, but also that I could be Larry. And I didn't have to... I tell people North Coast is a church, is basically a youth group for adults, and it's a church I'd want to go to rather than trying to say, how do we grow a big church? That just happened. But I would have been happy if it was small. So.
Awesome. How did you meet Jason?
I'm trying to go back. It probably was Leadership Network,
It
right?
was Leadership
in one of those
Network,
groups. For about 16 years, I was what they called a lead mentor for Next Gen that an organization called Leadership Network had.
Yeah.
They would gather together pastors that were young, kind of next gen, but were already doing something significant, and they thought we're going to be doing a whole lot even more significant in the future. I did their first one, and I called them up and said, I will do this every year for you. I'll be your anchor. If you'll, often I was booked a year out or whatever. If you get on the schedule, I will do it. They had the worst honorarium in the world. And it was like a lost leader almost, but the impact to hang around younger pastors who were going to not always be younger pastors, but eventually be mentoring pastors of very significant churches of their own. I felt like I'm kind of wired to do that. Mm-hmm. Plus, it was an incredible privilege. I'd come home and tell Nancy, my wife, you can't believe who I got to hang with. Much more than the idea they were lucky to hang with me. So I did that. Jason was in one, and we've continued a relationship. I do some things called an Eagle's Nest that are by invite only, and I just invite people that I think are some of the better pastors in America. And we sit around, what do you want to talk about? And iron sharpens iron. They mentor one another, and I share the little bit that I know.
Well, I've shared this with you, Larry, that we are, as a staff and as a church, recipients of your care and your sharpening of Jason. So we're very grateful for you.
Yeah, and we didn't say this yet, but we didn't tell you, but one of the phrases we say every time on this podcast is the Larry phrase or Larryism, or however you say that. Trust God and take a nap.
Wow.
We say that at the end of every podcast. And so, that's
you haven't gotten your residual check?
Nope, not a royalty at all. I'm kind of bummed out. You owe me at least $1.30.
Yeah. But to your point, that's a part of his influence.
So as part of your influence, and we don't have to get too deep into your mentoring relationship. I know you guys meet monthly. If you were having an IC&U conversation with our lead pastor, what would you say?
If I was having a what now?
IC&U.
What I see in you.
What I see in you.
I see in Jason, well, let me step back in what I do, because that explains what I see in Jason and pretty much all the people I pour myself into. Because again, things are pretty much by invite only. I am not a mentor in the sense that the PGA golfer at the local golf course comes alongside and teaches people how to golf, and he gives them the same recipe, you do this or that. I really have no content. What I have is some life wisdom and some gifts in that. And I tell people I'm a swing coach for PGA golfers. They're already on the tour. They didn't need me to get on the tour. I might be able to help them be a better them. And that's what I see in Jason. I go, well, the dude's on the PGA Tour. He's Ohtani in the major leagues as a batting coach. So I see in Jason someone who doesn't need me and flies very high like an eagle, and I can be a bit of wind beneath his wings to help him fly a little bit more or a little bit higher. And that's what's fun for me, because I don't really know how to get a turkey off the ground. Every eagle flies their own little route. But to come along and figure out what their route is, and is there a fingerprint or two you can have in your life, is a great privilege.
How would you see this relationship?
Well, I guess I can't say that I'm an eagle, right? That would not be eagle-like. But yeah, for me, it has been very much that. What I've always appreciated about Larry is that fact. Like, Larry's not trying to, even though he's written books, he's not trying to sell me a book or sell me a curriculum or sell me a product. He is the commodity, and I know all of my friends feel that way about him. We all call him Yoda.
That's because I have big ears and a lot of wrinkles. That's all that means. A Leadership Network, God, and that was, I think, 14 years ago now. Quite a while
I think
ago.
It was like it was either 2011 or 2012 when I first started going to that. And there was a lot of, I was like 33 in that time frame. And so I knew who Larry was and had read some of his books. But what I always appreciated about him is what he was just referring to is his take on ministry and discipleship and leadership. It just like cut through the noise, and it's not this program, it's in my mind, really foundational, like just the way he would describe it. Here's discipleship, your next step of obedience, leadership, your next step. I can quote those things, your next step of sacrifice. And when I heard him, I'm like, finally, somebody is not just talking about this theoretically or talking about this academically, but actually giving handles around it and has done it, So for me, that has been super helpful because he is very wise, not just in leadership, but life. So a lot of times our calls, like early on, I would come in with a list of questions, like here, this question, I want this question answered, this question answered, this question answered. A lot of times now it's like, I don't even come with I may have some questions, but it's just hanging out, like I joke with people and this, like the way I say it, and I tell my friends it's like I pay Larry to be my friend. Like,
that's the only way I'd be your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
But it is and being in the Eagle's Nest and with other guys, it's just, I think being a lead pastor, and he says it's not like it's the hardest job in the world. There's definitely harder jobs. But I do think it's important to be in relationships with other guys that know what you do. Mm-hmm. And he's further along than me in that. So for me, a lot of my mentors and best friends are guys that do what I do, and help me, do that better, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up some of the things that you've learned from Larry, because our language here at Revolution is that discipleship is your next step of obedience, and leadership is your next step of sacrifice. That came from you. Can you explain that?
Well, basically, let's see, how do I do it a short way? Our models of discipleship are not particularly biblical. We've taken the idea that if you're a discipleship pastor, your job is to find Christians and make them a better Christian. And a disciple is not a Christian, but a Navy SEAL Christian. But that Greek word, mathetes, the Bible uses for disciple, it's used of people who left everything behind, young men following a rabbi and printed and almost a clone of that rabbi. But it was also used of people who followed anything. John the Baptist had his disciples. The last in line in the Jesus line would be a disciple, just not a very good one. And our metaphor has been a ladder. You climb up it. So as you go, you get rid of the obvious sins in your life. Then you start knowing a little more Bible. Then you get theology. Then you need to serve somewhere. If you're really serious, you go into vocational ministry. If you're all in, you're standing on top of the ladder. You're a missionary overseas. And the Bible just doesn't have that metaphor that everybody should be becoming a leader. Everybody has to serve, etc. We're all different. And so I call it the two rails that the train runs on. Mm-hmm. The church local, church universal. Revolution would have no future if it didn't have a leadership pipeline, nor would the church universal. You also would have no salt and light if you weren't helping people be better mathetes, followers, in the next step of obedience. Mm-hmm. And it's just different for everybody. I often parallel it this, metaphor is if I was a PE coach and basketball coach at a high school, I'd want everybody to know the basic rules of basketball. I want everybody to get some exercise. But when the season came around, I wouldn't try to make everybody on the basketball team. I'd say, who wants to be on the basketball team? Mm. And then meet me for running gassers at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I'd shoulder tap anybody over 6'4".
Yeah.
Say, have you thought of it?
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of how we did stuff at North Coast and why we had the leaders we needed. We weren't trying to make everybody a leader. We were trying to make everybody the next step of their discipleship. But those who wanted to be and those who didn't realize it were 6'4" and over, we would shoulder tap. And I always had the time, money, and energy to raise up leaders when I wasn't trying to turn everybody into a leader, which is where I think our common American and European metaphor of discipleship, being a super Navy SEAL Christian, falls apart.
Interesting. As a leader in the church for over 40 years, walk us through things that happened 40 years ago that you look back on and go, oh, that was a leadership mistake, or that was a leadership win, and things today that you look at and you want to impart that on people like Jason.
Well, I would think the biggest losses, the biggest loser events I did were when I was trying to make something for God. As I had two youth groups, I have some gifts of leadership. So I had two youth groups in large churches that grew incredibly large. And then I became a pastor of a church that had 70 people, quickly grew to about 95 adults. 3 years later was 96. So that's a third a person a year. And it was during that time I realized I wasn't following what Peter says when he says, shepherd the flock among you. I was using the sheep I had to build the church I wanted to build and reach the sheep I wanted to reach. No wonder they brought didn't bring their friends. Hey, come to North Coast. Larry will use you. And once I killed some of those dreams of being big, as if that was the end goal, I just took care of the people I had. And lo and behold, they started bringing people with them.
Yeah.
And so I would say that by far was the biggest learning curve for me, that I'm not supposed to build something great for God. I'm supposed to take care of the flock he has. If I do that well, he'll bring some more. Everybody has a leadership lid. Maybe my lid is 200 people, or it ended up being thousands and thousands. It really didn't matter. If I took care of the people I had, he would add until I hit my capacity, and then I could do my best and take a nap, as you like to say.
That's right. Yeah.
But one of the things, and leadership capacity is interesting, because one of the things that Pastor Jason has imparted upon us is that we're all leaders. We're all leading ourselves. So that's the first step. So if you're looking back and you're saying, okay, this is the definition of a good leader, what would you say that is now?
Well, I think we can use the same words in different dictionaries, or you look up a word, it has different ones. When Jason says we're all leaders, we're leading ourselves, I would probably use a different word. I would use the word influencers. Because in a sense, we're leading ourselves, you know what I mean? But when it gets outside of that, I'm not sure everybody's a leader, but everybody's an influencer. And so for me, a leader is someone you look and there's lots of followers. So my definition of a leader is somebody, well, when they start walking this way, lots of other people walk with them. And there's good and bad leaders. So we're probably, you look up a word in the dictionary, it'll have 3 different meanings in different contexts. Yeah. And I would totally agree that if you mean by influence, everybody's a leader, everybody is. And I'd love to help you be a better influence by helping you be more obedient in your walk with Jesus. But when I talk about leaders, I'm talking about someone who is rising up and there's a line following them. Small line, mid-sized line, or large line. But in that sense, not everybody's a leader.
Yeah.
I would use my wife. Nancy's gifts are helps and mercy. She's incredible behind the scenes and an amazing balance to who I am. But the last thing she'd want to do is be walking and look and see a long line behind her, or even a short line. It's like, I'm not a leader.
Yeah.
So
what led you to write Lead Like a Shepherd?
Well, I write 2 kinds of books. The publishers don't like that because they go, your readers, you don't have a good brand, Larry. They don't know if you're a mystery writer or a cookbook writer. Yeah. So I write leadership books and I write spiritual formation or discipleship books. And they don't like it, but I say, sorry, I'm a pastor at heart and I want to disciple people and I have a unique gift of leadership, so I'll write both of them. Lead Like a Shepherd was my attempt to put those 2 things together. For everybody who's leading anything that's large, medium to small, but in the leader that I just defined. Because once again, I think we tend to think that we're building something for God and then people are just the tools we use. And I go, no, they are not the tools. They are the end product.
They are the point.
Yeah. It's all about the people. What I tell lead pastors is we think we have a legacy. In reality, all we're doing is building a sandcastle. It's still the glory of God. But there are not 300-year-old, 200-year-old churches that are anything but a museum people walk through. But God's kingdom, not your 501c3, God's kingdom keeps going on forever. And so at that point, it's not about what North Coast Church becomes, because someday it's going to become that sandcastle. The tide comes in and God's raised up another wildfire and castle somewhere else.
Yeah.
So how does a church or how does any organization build something that lasts beyond them?
Well, that's exactly it. I get asked that all the time, and behind it, and maybe Dave, you don't mean that, but behind it is the 501c3 revolution, North Coast Church.
Yeah.
So I had the privilege of being at the first meeting, a guy named Jim Collins, the author of Built to Last and other great leadership books.
Good to great, yeah.
Yeah, first one he had with Christians. He had never met them before. He'd spoken at Willow Creek one time, and Hybels got a bunch of 31 people in the room. You ever been in a room where that you don't belong? You hope they don't ask who you are?
Many times.
That was my experience at that stage of my life. Like, I hope they don't ask how I got in here because I have no idea.
Yeah.
But he started out because he'd written Built to Last.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you care what your church is like in 100 years? And I was the only guy who didn't raise his hand. And he looks at me and goes, Larry, and not because I'm known, but I had a big name tag.
Yeah.
And he says, why isn't your hand up? And I said, I can't control what happens to North Coast Church when I'm gone. I will have won if all those thousands of people are going to other churches. I'm not a loser. And you would have thought I also said, and Jesus isn't coming back and wasn't born of a virgin.
Yeah.
Like the whole room turned. And it was the first time I realized our confusion that our local church is somehow the kingdom, and all it is an outbranch.
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks doesn't care if I quit going to one and go to another, right?
Right.
I mean, the branch manager does, store manager, but they don't care. There was a time they didn't care if I went to Seattle's Best because they own that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at North Coast, I want to build lasting people, and I wonder if I can build a lasting organization.
That's
and
good.
those are two different things. I'm going to try, but I'm not judged by the organization. I'm judged by the people.
Mm-hmm.
And if they all end up somewhere else, I won big time.
Yeah. If they're in the kingdom.
How does that resonate with you?
I love that because I didn't get into ministry, and I tell this to our board often. I didn't get into ministry to run an organization, and that's not what excites me. What excites me is people. And that's why I love our church. At least the core of it is we're here to love Jesus and grow people. So I was a little, I wouldn't say stunned the first time I heard Larry say that, but I was a little like taken back of like, oh, you mean I don't like, but I was freed in a way of like, oh, you mean I can think that way? That's okay. Like I'm not just here to build an organization. Because I do think that can become a problem in the church or with a local church is it's not about Revolution Church, Right. And this is why forever we had other churches on our website, like, hey, if you don't like and even our first time guest calls, like if you don't like our church, that's all right. We just want you to be in church.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we're all on the same team and why we work together with our church planning network and all our local churches who Larry we'll be meeting with tomorrow and helping train church planners. So yeah, I love that. It's very freeing.
It is.
And it doesn't mean that I'm not trying to build an enduring church.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. I would love that each time we change pastors, the church gets bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to judge what I did and God's pleasure with me by whether it gets bigger, stronger, or folds. I'm going to judge by were these people caught the real disease, or did we just inoculate them?
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and even in our stewardship class, our membership class, and once we go through, hey, this is who we are. These are the covenants. This is what our expectation is. This is what your expectation of us should be. Hey, if this isn't your church, we know a lot of pastors. We know a lot of churches. We would love for you to get connected to.
Like in San Diego, we have In-N-Out Burger, and Chick-fil-A has just recently come out. But I don't know if you've noticed, like In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A and Whataburger or whatever, they like to be with other fast food restaurants.
Yep.
But sometimes as church leaders and Christians, we see them as competition. But what they know is if they can raise the appetite for fast foods, right, it's like a rising tide. All the boats are going to rise. And so our competition is not the other churches in town.
No.
Our competition are all the other things in town.
Yeah.
And in Southern California, it's hard to find a Chick-fil-A that isn't right next to an In-N-Out.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're smart.
They realize that. So the only way we're going to raise the spiritual temperature is do the best we can with what we got and pray and help every other church that's reaching people we're not.
Yeah, yeah.
When you were writing Lead Like a Shepherd, and again, it was foundational in my growth.
That's cool.
When you were writing that, were there things that like, wow, okay, I'm learning that as I'm writing it?
Not so much because everybody writes differently who writes books. I tend to wait a long time to write a book. The book on small groups that kind of launched my name out there, Sticky Church, we'd been doing that for 18 years when we wrote the book. So I always get asked, what would I change? Well, a lot of times people write the book 5 years into it, 3 years into it. You actually go and visit that church or that business and they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So my answer is always, well, I don't have much to change, but if you'd ask me at year 5, I sure did or whatever. So Lead Like a Shepherd was the end result of probably almost 25, 30 years of doing ministry. And it's like, okay, I think I now know what I'm saying. So there wasn't anything particularly I learned, but anytime you write or speak, you learn how to articulate something a little bit better. But it wasn't a research book. I mean, I just sat down. When I write, I have a couple imaginary people, little figurines. Like I don't write to an audience, I write to a person. And in that one, I wrote to a young Larry. I wrote to the church I grew up in, which had all this zeal, but had been misplaced. And so, I just, again, no research. I just sat down and said, what have I learned?
Yeah, that's good.
Let's talk about Sticky Church and groups at North Coast. And this is an amazing statistic. 95% of the people who go to North Coast are in a small group.
Well, not really. Okay, people here's what it is, because the larger you get, you have to switch your metrics.
Okay.
So what we would do is we would take our average adult attendance every year in October, because, the comeback from school is over. And then we would say how many people are actively in our life groups in October, not who signed up in September. And we were always at 80% of that number. And then the last 10 years or so pre-COVID, we were at 90%. And then post-COVID, we're over 100 because you have people who are listening online. But it's a percent of the number of adults you have on a Sunday. What percent of that number are in small groups?
Okay, so your average adult attendance.
Yeah, so because you never have everybody at church.
Sure.
So we'd probably be in the real world at 75, maybe pushing 80% sometimes.
Yeah.
It's still phenomenal.
It is.
Yeah, it's a high group. But I always want to be a little bit of truth there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
No pastor math, if you will.
Yeah.
so what is your vision for groups?
Well, people tend to miss it. And again, I think there's a lot of good ways to do groups. So this is description, not prescription. But what we're trying to do is create relationships. I think that's the thing missing. We always live within the world and culture we live in, and we read the Bible through that lens. Anybody who's been to the Holy Land is always shocked when they see their first synagogue, how tiny it is, because we're used to mobility. But when there's no mobility, everything is small and local, right?
Yeah.
And so until the automobile came along, people lived in small situations where you could not hide. There was no imaging in Mayberry, USA. Everybody knew who was falling asleep drunk every night, who was yelling at their spouse.
Otis.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you knew everything going on. You knew who wasn't the honest business person and all of that. Well, nowadays, thanks to the automobile, that's gone. So I'll meet with some church planners and go, oh, we're incredibly tight. We have great relationships. We meet 3 times a week. I go, great. Do you drive to the meeting? Yeah. You can clean up a lot of your act in a 5-minute drive, much less a 15-minute drive. That fight with a wife is all over. You're walking in holding hands. The breath out is very different. So going way back then, I thought the missing ingredient was being known. So our groups are not for information. The sermon-based model of it, Lecture Lab, was to reach men who don't tend to normally like to read something and say, what do you think? But they're all experts on the movie they saw. So it was to reach men. It was also to prime the pump so they weren't talking about the Chargers and the weather, because one will depress you, even when they were in San Diego. But it was just to build relationships, because I think that's the missing thing. So our groups don't multiply and divide. They're not asked to have a missional focus. They're just asked to be Mayberry, USA in crazy San Diego, Southern California. So the group Nance and I are in has been together 27 years, and we're newbies at like 9. And what they do is they send off the kids to get married. They bring back a boomerang kid. They bury a spouse. Real communities going on. So in the models I saw before, it was like you need Christian relationships, and then it was quickly bait and switch. You need to multiply so we can grow the church. And I said, no, I don't think multiplying, it might grow the church, but it doesn't grow you. And what will grow you are places where the quiet introvert slowly just realizes it's okay. I'm known. And so it'll be the 3-year mark. We have a guy in our group, 3 years. And then he just prayed. How cool was that? Well, he would have never done it in constant multiplying, dividing, or heavy content.
Yeah.
Because he'd go, I don't know. Those are big words.
What do you do to build new leaders?
I tell people I'm a flaming charismatic who never got a prayer language. I really believe the Holy Spirit will do what Jesus said he would. So we run the magnet through the sand constantly. Say you're a life group leader. We will ask, is there anybody you think is ready? And you'll give me a name maybe. And then we'll say, is it okay if we ask them? And if you say, no, our group is just gelling, we won't ask them. But we run the magnet through the sand and to see who you think is qualified, apprenticing. Every group has a second apprentice that should lead the meeting at least once a time. And we just keep finding out somebody needs to take a break, then they'll come back, or somebody's ready to go. But we try not to do drive-by guiltings because they will respond to a drive-by guilting, but they won't stay with it. But when we pick up the filings, as it were, running the magnet through the sand, they'll stick with it.
And
by the way, we constantly have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we're working at that 24/7.
Yeah.
But our big thing is no guilt.
I like the guilt sometimes.
In the short term, it can be effective. Yeah.
I grew up with a Jewish mother, so we were big on that. I don't want to go book by book. And I don't want to say, okay, lead like a shepherd, and then we go accidental Pharisee. But I do want to talk about accidental Pharisee. But I want to talk about the message. We just came out of 4 weeks of an Easter series, and this was something we started last year, where instead of Pastor Jason just throwing everything into one Easter message, which is a lot.
Yeah.
We talked about the first week was crown of the cross.
Yeah.
And then the second week was the resurrection. And then the third week was the ascension. And then you came in and you talked about something a little more obscure regarding Easter, but still very important regarding Easter, Joseph of Arimathea. How did that come about?
Well, to me, he's the Easter story nobody remembers or pays attention to. And once again, as I pointed out, it's classic to our tendency to read the Bible through modern day experiences. So most of us have spent a great deal of time meditating on or teaching on, if you're a teacher, the cross and the resurrection. And we just see Joseph of Arimathea as a conjunction that connects the two of them because, of course, Jesus had to be buried somewhere.
Yeah.
But the reality is crucified people were enemies of Rome. A Roman citizen couldn't even, no matter what they did, couldn't be crucified. Bodies of a crucified person were not buried. They were thrown in the garbage heap. And they were eaten by dogs and birds within 24 hours. So from a human perspective, no Joseph of Arimathea, there's no resurrection. And that's why we find him in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All four of them tell the story because to them it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
And he's a hero. But now you fast forward where in the Western tradition we bury bodies. We just assume of course he had to be buried somewhere. And it's kind of cool he fulfilled this prophecy in Isaiah, but we don't notice anything about him. And of course, his main story is that he was a prominent member of that Sanhedrin. And he apparently, it's only 71 people, plus you're prominent. He must have laid in the weeds and hid in the corner while they beat Jesus, spit on him, called him a blasphemer, and turned him over to be killed.
Yeah, he was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
And he's called back to disciple. He's called a disciple twice in those 4 gospel accounts. Now, he's a sucky disciple. He's absolutely the absolute back of the line. But then Luke, I think it's Luke that says, but he was bold and courageous. When you think about that, you're going to Pilate and saying, this one you just crucified, he's my man. I want to bury him in my tomb. That's incredibly bold, incredibly courageous. And it teaches us so much about not writing people off, either ourselves or others, because we've almost come to the point where as Christians, when we see the back of a line, we disdain them. And we would have looked at the apostles as front of the line, and yet they all head for the hills. There would have been no resurrection. And the loser, who was, according to John, as I pointed out, a secret disciple because he was afraid. And we often say, you're no disciple. Well, the Bible says he was. Just a bad one. He courageously stepped forward, and we've got Easter from a human perspective.
I think it's a great way to wrap up the 4 weeks. And I know when we were laying out, what we were going to teach, when Jason said there was an opportunity for you to come and just kind of wrap it up with an aspect of Easter that nobody would be talking about. Yeah. And so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And when we discussed it, because I told him, here's what we're teaching, 3 weeks of Easter. I've been teaching through 1 Corinthians, we're going to go back to that. So you could do a standalone, you could teach in 1 Corinthians. But when then I was talking about Easter, he was like, oh, I'll do that. Like, let's tag on at the end of Easter. And so I was so glad when he said that because, I mean, I'm around him enough and heard him enough on the leadership side of things, so Sticky Church and all that. Like, that was so formational for me in ministry. I think probably his best work, though, is Accidental Pharisees. Because I think personally, not only because it has broad appeal, but I think that's the natural tendency for every person. We all so quickly can become that. And I think that's why at least I hope enduringly, that's one of his greatest impacts is helping people see that. How we all just like, we're all selfish when we come to Christ, even after Christ, we still are selfish. Like, we all think we're the better disciple and they're the worst disciple, And so that I just think that concept of accident, when he wrote it, I didn't know him when he wrote it. But when I read that title, I thought that might be the greatest title of a book I've ever heard.
Yeah. Explain that.
Well, nobody wants to be a Pharisee, right? They were the most committed, the most knowledgeable. They made the greatest sacrifices. Who would have, and they were respected. Jesus played the Pharisee card when he said, you got to be better than them if you want to get saved. And nobody went, oh, they're losers. They were like amazed by it.
Yeah.
But what happened when God showed up, those who were filled with zeal at the front of the line had become arrogant to the point that they became the arch enemies of Jesus. So I call it accidental because they didn't want to be a Pharisee, and no one I know today who falls in the trap wants to. It's a little like having dinner at Denny's. Like, no one plans to go there. You just end up there. Right? Like,
yes.
Like,
I never said, let's go to Denny's.
Yeah, but it just happened. And to me, that's why I call it accidental Pharisees. Really good people. If somebody's not pointing it out, including myself, you start looking at all the people you're ahead of instead of how far you have to go to reach what God is calling you to be.
What are some of the more subtle signs of an accidental Pharisee? Somebody who's drifting that way.
I mentioned it as kind of the last closing point this week in the message. What the Bible stops being a mirror and starts becoming binoculars. And so I listen to a passage, I read a passage, and I go, who needs to hear this? Instead of, no, the Bible is never meant to be used so I can look at other people and see what they need to clean up. The Bible is for my instruction, my rebuke, my correction, and my training in righteousness. And as James says, I need to look into it intently and then not walk away forgetting what I saw in the mirror and only remembering what I saw in other people. And I think that's just a natural tendency. The further you get, you start noticing who you passed up, and then you turn and look at them and pat yourself on the back rather than what you did at the beginning when you went, oh my gosh, I've got so far to go.
So it sounds like it's a blind spot. Being an accidental Pharisee is a blind spot.
Yeah, it's well-intentioned every single time. It's well-intentioned.
And to have somebody point that out in a loving way. Let me make an observation about you. But to have somebody point that, what is the natural course correction when you find yourself being an accidental Pharisee?
Well, like first of all, the description of the sin God hates most, and the one that is used in Luke, is not pride, like everybody says. Hey, what's God hate? Pride. I go, actually, the Hebrew word is haughty eyes. And in Luke, the Pharisee who prayed to himself and the prayer didn't go through, we're told he looked down on others. So I always point to people and go, if you want to know whether you're a Pharisee, there's two things you're going to be doing. You're going to be helping out God with extra rules because he forgot to, put enough safety margin. And then the other thing you're going to do is, if you're honest, you're looking at people and you're seeing what's wrong with them. You've got haughty eyes. But we've kind of turned pride into, a fifth grade niece. You hear she's fast and you go, hey, I hear you're really fast. She goes, oh, I can beat all the boys. And then mom or dad, Christian mom or dad, say, don't be prideful. She's not being prideful. She's being accurate.
Yeah.
Prideful is when she's looking down on those who don't run as fast as she does.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a sign. Like you start saying, everybody's good, but, hey, that's a great church, but.
Yeah.
Really good pastor, but. A really nice person, but. And I go, wow, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and with that, would you say, I was thinking about this when you were asking the question, David, like Jesus railed against most self-righteousness.
Absolutely.
Like that's what we're talking about here. And one of the things, especially being in the South, which is a little bit different than Southern California, but here in the South, like when I moved here, because I'm from Texas, which there's debate about what that's actual the South or not. I've realized it's probably not. But coming to the South, I felt like in a lot of ways is harder than pastoring in California, because there's almost it's different. I wouldn't say harder, but what you deal with here is people who think they're Christian, but they're really just self-righteous.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the darker the place, the brighter the tiniest light shines.
Yeah.
And so, I tell a story in one of my books of Carlsbad Caverns, and long story short, as my wife has claustrophobia, if you've been on the tour, at the end, they unplug it and show the pitch darkness.
Yeah.
Have some fun with that story. But the bottom line is, I told my son to punch his little Indiglo watch, first generation, where you couldn't even see it at night at home.
Yeah.
But suddenly you could see the ground in the shoes. In that dark cave, that watch could have let us out. In the daylight, you don't even know the light's on. So in many ways, California, where I've been all my ministry life, is a little easier because we have no one who goes to church to get elected.
Yeah.
No one who goes to church to kind of sell more, whatever they're selling, or just because it's a cultural thing to do.
Yeah.
And so that means if you're there, you're interested in the message, or you've stepped over the line.
Yeah.
Whereas when people think they're Christian just because they're moral, that does make it harder.
Yeah.
We face here, this may.
But there are a lot of good things.
There's a lot of great things in the South as well.
But believe me, when Nance and I come, we look and we go, there's some pretty cool things that go with that.
Exactly.
And there's,
I do like living here. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
And there's some, every place has challenges.
Yeah. And we do face here in the South, and I grew up in Philadelphia. I got saved in Southern California. I moved to Georgia in 2008. There are differences in church here, and I don't think it's a surprise. There are people who are sitting in seats in this church and other churches because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Grandma brought them to church. That's what they do. How long you been a Christian? My whole life. And that's the pat answer.
Yeah, that's when I say that's not possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I say that to say that's why I like that title in that book, in that concept, is because I think human nature is we always assume the best about ourselves and the worst about everybody else.
Absolutely.
And what we're saying, what I think the gospel does is, no, actually flip that. We should assume the worst about our intentions. Like, because if anybody, I'm the worst. Now, that may not be technically true if we were on a scale, you know what I mean? But it's like, but who am I judging it by? Am I judging it by the person next to me or Jesus? And according to the gospel, there's even what righteousness is in me is bad, Yeah.
It's like we're all on death row, but I'm looking around. I only killed 2 people. You were a mass murderer.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess on your scale you're worse than me, but I belong here.
Yes.
That's good. What do you think, speaking of churches, what do you think churches are getting right?
Well, I think some great things are happening right now. I have the privilege of being pretty bilingual when it comes to the body of Christ in America, which is primarily what I know. And God's on the move everywhere right now. You know, when this happens, uniquely as it does, it's been going on about 18 months. It's probably got another year or two to go. And then the ripple effect continues. But I'm just seeing God on the move pretty much everywhere. It's rare for me with the churches I have the privilege of working with where, man, we just hit a wall. We're going backwards or whatever. Good things are happening. So I think the church is getting a lot right. And God always raises up a next generation of great leaders. And that's what he's done. I remember when I was in my mid to late 40s and stuff, people talk about, wow, where's the next thing? And it's like, it'll come. Mm-hmm. We can be like Elisha when he's like, oh, I'm all alone. The Lord says, shut up. I've got 7,000 others like you. And that's what I think the church is getting right. That the Lord is raising up great young leaders that are in their late 20s. He's got just a whole host of people in churches like yours where great things are happening. I come home and you ask my wife and she'll say, when I come home from the Eagle's Nest things or speaking at an exponential or whatever, I'm always pumped. And I always say the same thing, like, babe, the church is in great hands. And I've been saying that for 25 years.
What do you think happened 18 months ago to start this?
I think, well, what happens when there's a huge revival is usually a major disillusionment. Remember, we started this, I said I was at the beginning of the Calvary Chapel movement, 400 people. Well, what had happened then? Well, all of the things you trusted in had been bankrupt. We were trusting in science. We called it modern man doesn't believe in miracles or this or that, anything. So it's flipped now to postmodern man. But a modern man doesn't do that. And we think we can disprove the miracles in the Bible and the archaeology of the Bible. And then suddenly they were proving the archaeology of the Bible, right? But you had the Vietnam War, you had politicians. At a young age for me in junior high and high school, I just assumed every public figure politically is going to get shot. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Kennedy 1, Kennedy 2, Ford. I mean, I can just go on and on. And we've had a similar disillusionment in our culture with authority. And so people on the left are just raging mad. People on the right are raging mad. We've also had a promise of college, borrow tons of money and you'll get a great job. But when everybody goes to college, you still end up being a barista, which is a very honorable job, but you probably did need 4 years and
of college education,
$200,000 to become a barista. And so, some of that discontent you're feeling in the culture, it's all called broken promises. And when all the false gods of this world prove to have broken their promises, it kind of happens all at once, right? There's that old phrase, slowly and then all at once. And I think that's what hit about 18 months ago. There was also a reaction to the morality police on the left, trying to pass morality and force morality on everybody, which, by the way, happened also to the right when it tried to pass morality on air. In each case, when you try to force moral convictions on people who don't hold them out of authority, you're going to have a rebellion. And we had one when the right was doing that, and we had one recently. So you pile all that together, it's a perfect storm for the Lord to come out and just roar like Aslan of C.S. Lewis' Chronicles of Narnia, and people realize, oh, there's one lion. All these others are fake.
That's a good line.
There was something that Pastor Jason shared with us, that all of your friends are experiencing the same thing in their churches, the growth.
Yeah. So, we talked about this in our giving dinners last fall. Like, the phrase I kept using was, something's happening. Don't know what it is, but something's happening. But whatever it is, we got to steward it well. And I'm just a firm believer, and this is what I've always appreciated about Larry, even what he was saying earlier, like, the goal is not a big church. The goal is faithful. So like Jesus said, we lift him up, the Spirit will draw people to him. It just seems like that's what the Spirit is doing. And I remember even like COVID, post-COVID, like the phrase I kept thinking about is the recurring phrase in Revelation, the first 3 chapters, listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches, and like providentially for me, that's when we started our coaching relationship was in 2020. Because he spoke, remember, you actually spoke at Westridge at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And that's when we went, because like we all got to go listen to Larry. And I came up to you afterwards and like, hey, is there a way that we could talk more? Like, because we had been in Leadership Network and we started that coaching relationship. And it was so providential then. No one knew that was coming. And he told me then, like in March of 2020, he was like, this is going to be about 18 months. This is how these cycles go, And so just that refrain kept going in my mind of like, listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And I do think it was a disillusionment for the culture, which obviously the Lord uses.
Yeah, and I didn't even add the whole COVID thing. In California, we were closed 18 months.
Yes.
There were places where it was a 2-week deal across the country. It's everything. But there was a disillusionment in that as well, like statements that were made and, so-called science and all that. And then suddenly it's like, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
And so there is only one truth.
Yeah.
And people started going, well, these haven't been, let's check this one.
Yeah.
So,
no, and that's what I think post-COVID, like, and again, it's not like if the church isn't growing, they're not being faithful, but it does seem to be around the world, all these kind of earthquake events happened, and the Lord uses that providentially, and I think leaders are listening to what the Spirit is saying, and people are coming, people are hungry. There's all these kind of events that, now Bible sales are way up, church growth, attendance, again, it's not about those things, but I do think there's a hunger, like he said, I love how he said it, for the real lion. That's my favorite picture of Jesus as a lion. And that's exciting to me because I think all we have to do faithfully is show the culture who Jesus is. The Spirit takes care of the rest of that.
And not pat ourselves on the back too much because it ends.
Yeah.
And like I said, ripple effects do not end. But you look at church history, there are just movements and who knows what and who knows why. There's always somebody trying to create it.
Yes.
Well, and we find some prayer meeting that was going on when the revival broke out and we credit it. And then we pray, and I always tell people, there's always prayer for revival.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody's going to say Jesus is coming tomorrow, and some lucky fool is going to be right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't mean he brought Jesus, and I love that. Yeah, pray for revival, but bottom line is we don't create it.
No.
It's like the wind. The Spirit of God just moves, and like, why did that breeze come through?
Yeah.
But I'm going to grab it, set up sail.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the really cool things about this past exponential, and we talked about this briefly on the podcast, but there was one night that we were all just hanging out at the house, and some of our church planters were there. You were there, Larry, and we're all sitting outside at a table, and there were church planters in their 20s that we have raised up and sent out.
Yeah.
And there were pastors from different churches and different generations. So we had 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. And we're just hanging on every word that came out of your mouth. like Jason says, Yoda. And you talked about the importance of longevity and how to live in order to have a long life, but also to finish well. So as we come to the end of today's podcast, I do want to talk about what is your thought? What are your thoughts on finishing well? And how did you get to this point?
Well, finishing well, there's a number of things I could say, but if I had to highlight in briefly a few, one is understanding the difference between your potential, everything you could do, and thinking God wants you to do it, and your calling, which is everything you should do that He's assigned you. It's hard to finish well when you not only do what God called you to do, but you try to add a bunch of other stuff to it. So, for instance, in my life, North Coast could have been a few thousand larger, and I could have written 4 or 5 more books. But my calling was to be a great dad, a great father, and a decent pastor. And every book I wrote, every little extra few thousand that came to North Coast, they were things that, well, if I have the margin and can do them, but imagine if I felt like I have to do it because I have the ability to do it. Well, I live an exhausted life without margin. The New Testament does, there are 9 of the 10 commandments are repeated. The Sabbath is not. It's not a law, but the principle of margin. And by the way, the old biblical Sabbath there's nowhere in the Bible where it's a day dedicated to God, reflecting on him. The Bible was just in a day and age where everything was done by hand. I'm your union steward even during harvest time and planting time, and I want you to have a day off. It's a gift of rest. So I think longevity, you have to have that margin, and you're going to get that margin when you understand the difference between what everybody wants you to do and everything you could do, how high could you climb, and you learn to listen to, well, what's he calling me to do? Mm-hmm. And that's your do your best and take a nap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other, I learned this too. My kids ran distance running. And when you run any distance from the half mile all the way to cross country or whatever it would be, the one who wins is the one with a kick at the end. Mm. And what I began to realize is what a marvelous metaphor that is, because you never have a kick in the last 100 to 200 yards if you don't have margin.
Mm. Yeah.
And many of us have been taught we're supposed to leave everything out on the field. Mm-hmm. Well, those are the ones who come to the finish line and they're shaking because the lactic acid in their body is, all jacked up or whatever it would be. And so champions actually always still have something left in the tank when they cross the finish line. Mm. Totally different than I was taught.
Yes.
Which was leave it all. It's like, no, you always have to have reserve, even when you cross that finish line. That's how you finish strong.
So we had that conversation, and I believe it was it was the Tuesday night of Monday night of Exponential.
It was Monday night.
Yeah, because you had driven all night.
All through the night to get there.
to get to Exponential.
Yeah, wasn't missing it.
Yeah. And that theme ran all the way through the week. I don't think that was coincidental. I think it was providential. The messages that were at Exponential were soul care for pastors, and Rich Velotis talked a lot about margin. And then we are coming home. We're at the airport in Atlanta, and Rob McDowell, one of Jason's friends, who's the pastor at North Metro.
He's also in our Eagles Nest group.
Okay. Yeah, he's in that group. Yeah. You know Rob. And he probably got this from you. He said,
we all did.
Yeah. When I don't have margin, there's no place for my kindness to land.
That's cool. No, that's not mine, but this will be.
Yes, yeah. And that was just a theme, and I have not stopped thinking about that. Just as I hadn't stopped thinking about something that you said that Monday night, which was one of the keys to your longevity was glass house living. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that?
Well, I've been in the and by the way, for all that are listening in, we're talking about vocational ministry. I do some mentoring business leaders and people. This applies to stay-at-home moms.
Everything.
Yes.
This applies to everybody, that's influencing or leading kind of anything. But we all live best when mom is watching, right? Mm-hmm. It's like mom's here, language is better, everything's a little better when mom's there. And I'd been a part of accountability groups, and I realized they didn't do any good. They were no better than the honesty of people. I was literally in a group where, hadn't done anything, looked at anything, whatever, passed all the hard questions. And within 24 hours, he was arrested for attempted rape. Mm. It's like, are you kidding? That had taken place, by the way, before we met. Mm. And because people lie about shame. Mm-hmm. So I gave up on those long ago. If you're in one, great. It's bearing good fruit. Go ahead. But I just decided I'd live a life of no secrets. Mm. That what I did on vacation would be what I do in town. Mm-hmm. If I didn't want my kids to have, 2 dads,
right?
3 dads, the dad on stage, the dad on vacation, and the dad in town. Mm-hmm. It's like whatever we had freedom to do, we have freedom to do. Whatever I don't. We, by our gifts and our calling, both Nance and I, hospitality, we have lots of people through our home. Just the whole sense of being an open book. Mm-hmm. Because the more you hide stuff, you're just setting up the enemy. You're giving a foothold area. Mm-hmm. This one thing I don't want anybody to know. Mm. This thing I enjoy, but I don't want anybody to see. Everywhere we go, Size Church of North Coast, people know us. Mm-hmm. Right. And the waiter or waitress never tells us until the end of the meal. Yeah. Oh, by the way, they want to see what kind of jerk I am or whatever. Yeah. And Nancy calls it, the food's not right, the service is bad. She just kicks me under the table and says, "Hey, they'll be in the front row next week.
Yeah.
Be careful." and I know some friends who hate that, and I go, "That's the greatest gift I've ever had."
Amen. Yes.
That being under the spotlight and glass house of my role causes me to always think, how am I representing Jesus? And that's not a thing to run from. That's like, oh, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And that's why it's applicable to every person.
Oh, and I have said this many times from stage in that same idea. I was like, I think God knew he had to make me a pastor in order to make me an obedient Christian. I needed that kind of, but that's what I've always appreciated about you is like, because early on, and even in some of those lead pastor groups, the idea was like, oh no, it's going to get exhausting going out to the public and everybody knows you. So you got to go to the town over and you got to go to dinner there, be able to not, you go somewhere people don't know you. And I understand, but I'm like, but I didn't get in this to be famous. Like, that's not what I'm not trying to run from people. Like, I say that to say like your point, that has been the greatest gift to me. Like living here in Canton, in Jasper, in Cherokee County, like, me seeing people is the greatest part of my life. Like, I love that. I'm in ministry for that. Right. But knowing that people are going to see me is also one of the greatest gifts to me.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to run from that. I don't want to go to Cartersville or go over to Alpharetta just so that no one knows me.
Right.
Because then what am I trying to run from?
Right.
Yeah. I tell everybody, when you have things you're trying to hide, first of all, you're not hiding them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your kids know and people know you think you're hiding them.
Right.
And so just be you. And like, you're going to be a better example and you're going to follow Jesus better when everybody's watching.
Yeah.
So follow up to the glass house living. What is something that people would be surprised to know about you? They saw you preach, they heard the podcast, something that
I'm a total open book. So if anything, that created problems at times. The larger the church got, the more you became a thing instead of somebody they knew well. I'm the world's worst poker player because I'll roll my eyes, which means I rolled my eyes. But you think there must be all kinds of stuff behind that. Jason, you've known me well enough, right? That it's like I am what you see is what you get. That is a great blessing. But I think a lot of people assume, oh, if you said that or did that, then you meant a whole bunch of other stuff behind it. I think the thing they'd be most surprised at is I'm a vocal, think out loud sort of person. My wife is quiet, and how much laughter and in a good way, like in a locker room, trash talk there is between, I mean, in the fun way, the loving way. I don't mean bad at all, but we'll just laugh sometimes and you go, if people really knew.
Yeah.
If people really knew, like he's just the most fun, spunky person who they all think is this quiet little, because she doesn't like the spotlight.
Yeah.
So that people who know us well, that's always when they say, they go, oh, we thought you ran over Nancy. And it's like, no, I just go, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's right. There's no, yeah. And I would echo that.
And because she deserves it. Now, she's not demanding. It's like, she's right. More godly than I'll ever be. I just happen to have leadership and speaking gifts.
Amen.
Well, you have shared your gifts well with our lead pastor, and you've shared your gifts well with our church this past weekend and here on the podcast. Is there anything else you would like to ask Larry? Is it like an extra mentoring session?
No, I mean, I get plenty of time to ask him questions. But no, again, I that's just to make the statement. This is why I wanted people to meet him and know him, so that they know, A, the kind of people I hang out with and get to ask questions from, but B, to see some of the influence and where those things come from. Because everything he just said is what I appreciate the most about him. And the longer I've spent time with him, I've been to his house many times now, and the closer I get, and the closer I get to see him interact with Nancy and interact with us guys, that is the truth. And that's what I appreciate the most about him. Larry is probably one of the most quote unquote successful yet most unassuming pastors. He doesn't roll with an entourage. He normally is in a Hawaiian shirt or a North Coast training shirt.
Hawaiian's 15 years old.
Yeah.
Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
That was yesterday.
Yeah. Rolling up with flip-flops.
Yeah, polo shirt. That's true.
Polo shirt. Yeah. But again, it's like the old adage of the closer you get to someone, the more impressed you should be. You know, like I don't want the people that are the furthest away from me to be the most impressed by me. And the
good.
ones that are the closest to be the most turned off. And I think that's the most, like the greatest compliment I can give Larry is the integrity of his life, you know, not just his teaching, and I think that's the greatest gift to us. Like I've said this to him, he's the same age as my father. And what a privilege it is for me to have someone like that in my life to say, you know what, that's what I want to be when I grow up. You know, not Larry, the leader of a mega church, or Larry, the author, just Larry as a person.
Excellent.
You know,
excellent. So, what a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
This is now the end of the show. And we did preface, Larry, that we have quite a large staff that works on the program and works here at the church. The first few names are actual staff members. So as we wrap this up, if there is anything that you heard that you want to know more about, then I hope you wrote it down. Our producer is Brian Dabro. Our video technician is the king, Keon Zadici, and he is back there right now working on this. Our key grip is Jakub Puszczykowski. That's actually his real name.
Those are real names. He's Polish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our film director is Marcos Guardiola. Now,
that's a real guy.
Now, our head of doctrine and theology is theologian. Thea. She's very smart. Our chief evangelist is salvation. Our backsliding prevention officer is lukewarm. Our director of Swedish witnessing. Do you have one at North Coast? No? Okay, his name is Bjorn again. Bjorn. He laughed.
That's my favorite.
I got to laugh at him. Okay, our expert on Russian eschatology is Pitov Hell. Pitov Hell. Our director of holiness is mortification. Our staff counselor is Les Moody. He's very busy. Our giving coordinator is generosity. Our nativity coordinator, she's from France. Her name is Bethlehem. Bethlehem. She's French. Our co-pastors of plagues, Manny Locusts and Lance Boyles. They are co-pastors of plagues. We have a sabbatical director. Have you been on a sabbatical?
No.
Yep. Yeah. You might.
We didn't talk about that. There's a whole thought about that. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Margin.
His name is Trip Long. Our missional expert is Sam Area. Our strategist for the final battle, her name is Irma Geddon. Our resident prayer warrior is Neil Down. Our executive director of spiritual warfare is Demonic. Now, we have a director of Old Testament covenants. He was knighted by the Queen. His name is Sir Comsize.
That's probably my second favorite. Yeah.
Our video technician in charge of instant replay is Slow Moses. Our director of New Testament baptism, Phil DeTub.
No sprinkling here.
Yeah. Our wardrobe has been provided by Saul of Target. Our staff real estate expert is Simon the Zillow. Am I going too fast? Okay. Catering provided by the only Asian Jewish cuisine in Cherokee County and Pickens County. Catering provided by Benny Hanukkah. I can get away with saying that.
You can.
Our head farmer and dietitian is Daniel Fast. Our chief estimator of Old Testament timelines is Ishmael. Our chief Levitical... It'll end soon. I promise. Our chief Levitical expert is Raul Follower. Raul Follower.
He's an accidental Pharisee.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Our head of biblical ancestry is genealogy. Name's Genie. Last name's Ology. Our latest hire... He only sings specifically from the Torah, and especially Deuteronomy chapter 6. He's a great singer. He's the chairman of the board. He's old Blue Eyes, singing Deuteronomy chapter 6. Frank Shamatra. The Shema, people.
Yeah, the Shema.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And that's
What's his title? He's the.
I don't have a title for him.
You just had a name. Yeah.
Yes, he's our cantor.
Okay.
He's our cantor.
All right, there you
it's
go.
Frank Shamatra. I get paid to do this, Larry.
Yeah.
I hope it's not much.
And as you have said, as we have stolen,
Not stolen,
no,
just multiplied.
multiply.
But
Hey,
I think he should say it.
yeah,
Not me.
And thank you for being here, and thank you for coming in early, and thank you for speaking to our church, and for loving Jason.
Yeah. But the best advice we ever heard, that's the setup.
That's the setup. What
Is
is it?
always,
Do your best, then take a nap.
that's right. Yes.
Yes. Trust God. Take a nap.
Yeah.
Do your best. Take a nap. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. See you next time.